and we are so lucky to have a friend, a colleague, a writer, director. Please welcome with a warm applause, Veera Ikonen. Okay, you sent me a picture. Should we start with that?
Yeah. Yes. It's a picture from the summer of 2016, and maybe I could ask the audience, what do you see there on the sky? What do you think it is? Someone said sunset. Yes. It was a sunset. Huh?
Huge heart.
Huge heart. Yes.
Maybe a dove. Maybe a dove.
Angel.
Angel. Yeah.
Or a bird.
A bird. Yes. That's
Magical colors.
magical colors. To me, at that very moment, I saw a bird, and it was the phoenix bird. And actually, that's the silhouette of the city of Kotka, which means eagle, the name of the city. And to me, that was a phoenix bird. It was a summer where I had just, for the past 6 years, I had been surviving from the biggest traumatic event in my life, and kind of coming back to life slowly, step by step. And as I saw that, I decided that it was time to stop surviving and time to start thriving, like to live again and to feel joy. And I made the decision to leave my job, where I had been working in the TV production company for 12 years or 10 years, and decided that it's now time to let go and step into the unknown and embrace that uncertainty, and maybe something good will come out of it.
And what did you do?
After that,
yeah.
After that boat trip, we returned to our summer place, and I opened my laptop, and I decided that I'll just write an email to my ex-boss, to then boss, and just see what it would look like if I wrote to him that I'm going to leave and quit this job. And I wrote the email, and I was like, it looks fairly nice. Send.
Oh, feels good.
Yeah, and then came all the, what have I done? Feelings, yeah.
Yeah. There are things that led to this particular moment in your life. Like you said, you had many losses and sorrows and the feeling of wanting to live again. But then there was also some work-related stuff that you kind of wanted to do.
Yeah, I had been kind of lucky to work in the TV production, so that I had done lots of very great things that I also believed in and felt right. And then other things that maybe were not exactly aligned with what I wanted to do, but still, I had great colleagues and everything, so it had been a great time. But there were things that I wanted to do that could not be done within that framework. And one of them was a radio documentary about my great-grandmother, who came to Finland as a refugee in 1918, and also write a book, or write, period, just write. I had come back to Finland from England in 2004, thinking that, I'm going to start writing now. I had studied writing there, and then I had just done TV. So those were the two things that I wanted to do.
Okay. I don't need this. Let it go.
Let's improvise. Yeah.
Yes. The feeling you resigned, what happened then?
Well, what happened then was that, first of all, the idea that I wanted to do the radio documentary had come to me, especially during the autumn of 2015, when there were lots of refugees coming to Finland from Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan, and I was in the what's the word in the center, helping people out with refugee center, just with the feeling I want to do something, and I was helping out there, and then I saw this. There was this guy from Iraq, and we were doing something like attaching handles to pans together with him. We had no language that we shared, but I was just looking at him and thinking, how many generations will it take before his children will be called Finnish? And why is it that no one has any problems calling me Finnish, even though my great-grandmother came from somewhere else as well? And then I thought, I need to do this documentary because we need to broaden the story that we tell about Finnishness and about refugees, and as if Finland had been this closed-up society until the point of the September of 2015 or something. So I contacted the Finnish Broadcasting Company, and they said yes to the radio documentary. So that's the first thing that happened after I left my job. And then another thing that happened was that we, with colleagues, I called another old boss and friend of mine and said that I've resigned my work, and if there's anything, let me know. And as it happened, there was an operation in Forssa that was being made that brought together media and youth and building peace, and out of that grew GutsiGo, the organization that we are now doing, where we enhance the participation of youth in cities and build peace together with them. That was something that just came out of the blue, and I couldn't even see that coming, apart from the fact that the previous autumn I had lots of dreams where I'm in schools, and I kept waking up in the middle of this work process, this documentary film that we were making, and with these dreams that I'm in schools, and I'm like, there's nothing to do with schools with this project, and relax, there are no schools that I've forgotten, and so on. And then a year later, I'm suddenly doing something that has everything to do with schools and youth. And then the third thing was that obviously I applied to this course with the publishing company about writing, writing workshop, and I got accepted, and I had some short stories, and then I had a synopsis of a novel. And they said that we like the novel. Would you like to write this? And I started writing the novel, and then we started making GutsiGo, and I forgot about the novel for a while. And then a couple of years later, I made a update on Facebook, and the publishing editor from that course saw that, and she wrote me a message saying, Veera, I've just returned from my mother's leave, and I've changed into another publishing company, and I still keep thinking about your novel. And have you written it at all? More of it. And I said, I have few pages. And then she was like, well, send them to me. And then she read it, and she said, I want this. And then she said, I'm only worried that how will you find the time with your other work and
your school tour.
Yeah, with the school tours, and as it happened, I just managed to then find the time, and now the book is here. Yeah, so
there will be a release party next week.
Yeah, so thanks to the clouds for looking like a phoenix bird rising from the ashes, because otherwise maybe there would be no radio documentary or GutsiGo in this kind of form. At least I wouldn't be part of it, or this book. Maybe.
She is so modest. I just have to say that the radio document won the Koura Award. GutsiGo has won the Builders of the Century Award. What else? I'm sorry, now you have to help all kinds of Shortland
which all have been
awards.
A result of something that have been done together as well, that I want to make
sure. Of course, but you are behind all those things.
Yeah.
And last September came the State Award for public information through GutsiGo. You want to say a couple of words about GutsiGo, what you've been now doing?
GutsiGo is basically a method where which has been created together with youth by media makers and pedagogues. Is that the right word in English? Pedagogues. And it combines media and pedagogy and peace building. And what we do is that we work together with whole age group of 14-year-olds in cities, and within 1 week they are given a task of how to build peace together in their own neighborhoods and cities. And they operate in teams of 10, and they make an observation, what do we want to have an impact on? Then they create a solution to that problem that they've spotted, and then they do the project and film it, and in the end of the week, all of those acts of peace that the youth have created together are published on screen for the local audience in a cinema, and then online on social media. And the idea is to make visible the potential of youth as members of the society and make peace visible. And the most powerful experience I've had lately while doing this is we were just in Tallinn a week ago in Lasnamäe, and we had 100 youth, and half of them were Russian speaking and half of them were Estonian speaking. And we had this screening of 10 different kind of acts of peace that they had done that brought people together and created trust between people and friendship. And we ended the show with a video where they all told what kind of world they want to live in Russian and in Estonian. And we watched it together with them and their parents and their teachers. And I don't think there was one dry eye in there. And also it made it visible that it's not about something that we decide to do then, but we can start right now with these. Whatever we do today, we can already start building that kind of world that they are talking about.
They actually started on Wednesday already, because the interviews were made on Tuesday, and on Wednesday they were on the field and doing exact same things what they talked about. But there's we talked with Veera about the Kismet moments in her life. There's also a moment related to Gatsi Go. You talked about your sister's son. Yeah. What you had felt.
Yeah. So as I said, the moments, the tragic things that happened before the Phoenix bird moment was that I lost my sister, who was 45, and my sister's son, who was 23, and my first baby. He was 9 days old within 7 months. And you can imagine that kind of experience just pulls kind of rug away from beneath your feet. There's a saying in Finnish that elämä vetää maton jalkojen alta, and that's exactly how it felt. And sitting with this weirdness, this kind of matrix feeling that, wow, everything that I've thought about life suddenly disappears, and this feeling of safety is completely gone. I was at home, and I had a dream that my sister's son called me, and he lived in a suburb, a council estate area in Vantaa called Hakunila. And that he calls me, and he's really kind of, his voice was like, you need to do something about this, that he has a debt to Hakunila that he cannot pay, and he asked me to pay that debt on behalf of him. And I remember after that dream, I was thinking, what does this mean? I promised to him, I will take care of it. I will take care of this debt that you have for Hakunila. And after that dream, I realized that it means that I need to do something for the youth of that area. He was only 23, and I knew lots of his friends and what kind of trouble they were dealing with and so on. So I just decided one day I will have to do something. And I'm hoping, and I thinking about these Kismet moments, I'm sure that one day we'll do Gatsi Go also in Hakunila, because I think Gatsi Go is this paying back this debt in a way. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now it's said out loud,
yes.
So let's do it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the main things, is to say things out loud. That's when they start to manifest themselves in reality. Yeah.
Mm. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about your new book. You said you lost your baby during that 7-month period also, and Okay, just use your words about the process. What?
About the process. I think it's the experience started to become a story or grow into narration and book in my head probably quite soon after that. The book itself is not, it's a novel. It's fictional. There are elements and events obviously that have happened, but it's real mainly in relation to the experience of loss and sorrow and mourning. And I think those images and feelings are actually universal, and that they when they are not, it's something that you can't express with words, you kind of express it with images and these visions and feelings that are put into these images, and that's, the book is a picture of that sorrow in a way, and also surviving, and then perhaps the hints of not just surviving but thriving are in there as well. And it's been amazing that I've read some other books now about also losing a child, and they are all losing a close one. And there have been really similar imagery, and it's comforting because it gives me kind of assures me that our way of experiencing these things as humans is universal, and that they are sorts of collective image. It's collective imagery and our collective source that those experiences come from. Yeah.
We also talk about creativity, and you have done a lot of creative stuff. But then there was this thing with the book, actually, that almost all the others have been processes made together with people and like getting new ideas. And this was mainly your own process. How did you feel?
It was, many ways it was, well, fun is maybe the wrong word because of the subject matter, but in a way it was fun because it felt easy. Because I didn't have to negotiate with anyone. And I could just go with it, but at the same time it was difficult because then you have to face and deal with shame in a completely different way when it's just you and it's just my text, and there were these moments of extreme shame. And it's interesting that this kind of phoenix bird moment where you reach that moment where you let go of trying to cling on to safety and control everything, because you realize that, you know, you can't control everything, so you may just as well live. Then in a way it's saying like, F you to shame, but then there are days when the shame comes back and says, who do you think to say F me? Who do you think you are? So especially with the book, there were these moments where you feel like, oh, how can I ever let this go? And, you know, and it's easier when you're creating things together with other people, then you're responsible for it as well together. Obviously there was the editing by great Hanna from Veera Ikonen, and she kept convincing me, you know, yes, it does work.
I mean, sometimes there is, you're thinking about a Facebook post that, oh, is this okay?
Yeah.
Can I do it?
Yeah.
And then you do it, and then you're still like,
Yeah.
oh shit, it went there, and then you have your like.
And I'm sure I probably even after this I'm going to feel kind of hangoverish, like, what did I say? I don't know how many of you have had that feeling, especially after being somewhere where you talk a lot, and it's like, ah.
There's a small sentence, the mornings are yours.
Yeah.
When I explain it to us.
I'll explain it. It's sometimes we need kind of encouragement and guidance that we are on the right path, because when you feel like when you're doing what you're supposed to do and your intention is right, it's like you get these feelings of synchronicity, and you can start to, things match, and then something comes up and then it comes up again, and they are like signs. And sometimes it's nice to get some confirmation. And my beautiful great friend Aura, who happens to sit here, had this connection, this woman who you can call, and she kind of sees things and knows things, and she speaks in this amazing symbolic language. And I called her sometime in the middle of writing this book, and I was really tired at that moment, and I kept waking up every morning at 4 o'clock with my heart in my throat and like with these kind of feelings. And then I didn't say this to her, but she then suddenly just says, and if you wake up at the 4 o'clock in the morning, or even 3 o'clock in the morning, it's good. It's good because the mornings are yours. And I love that sentence, the mornings are yours. And after that, I started to, whenever I woke up at 4, I just got up and went to the laptop and started writing. And I used all those mornings that were this source of pain for me, that, I keep waking up, to writing the book. And actually it was great because I was kind of awake, but my inhibitions or these shame agents were not awake yet. Yeah. So I think that's the way I managed to write the book while doing Gutsy Go at the same time. So the mornings are yours, or if you're an evening person, then I suppose the nights are yours.
I like the idea that the shame agents are like night people more.
Yeah.
So all the Facebook posts in the morning.
Yeah.
I took a quote from our conversation. Situation where the only possibility is to be true to the world starts the journey towards meaningfulness.
Wow, did I say that?
Maybe I edit it. No, you said it like this.
Yeah. I suppose I meant that I suppose this happens to people in a different way, but I'm sure we all come across moments and times in our life, and probably not only once but many times, where something happens that strips down our beliefs about ourselves, our defenses, and sort of strip us bare, so that in a way the identity or the idea that we have of ourselves and about how life should go is torn apart, and then you are there naked in a way, and then you can't seek for safety from those things that you used to from outside of yourself, because they've been stripped down. So then all you have left is the very bare you, and there somehow you become the only way to be is to be true. And then when the only way to be is to be true, and you can't explain it, then you also find you are attached with what you're supposed to do in some ways, because you can't lie to yourself anymore. You can't explain things this way or that way, but you just need to be true. And then you also start to realize what's meaningful for me, and you can't really do anything else anymore, because the stories you've told yourself before don't work anymore. I think that's probably what I meant. I hope you sort of got it, what I meant.
Nicely put. You use this image that you looked to your left or right, and you saw like a train track going by, and you realized that my life is there and I'm going the opposite.
Probably to this point, although doing everything that was almost there and very much in line what I thought I want to, what I'm interested in, and so on. But somehow I constantly felt like this is I'm supposed to be on this train track, but somehow I'm on a train that goes this way, and I just keep going there, and I don't know why I've ended up here. And then as this sort of crash happened and everything fell apart, and I decided to let go of that and just jump into the unknown, I realized that finally I was on this track. But what I found out was that this loop on the other train track actually wasn't it wasn't wasted. But all the skills that I had gathered on this train track suddenly became extremely meaningful and useful here. And as I had done some things that I hadn't really believed in, but I had still kind of gained those skills to do that, let's say in TV production, like, oh, how do we get the Miss Finland and the Mr. So-and-so together on this show within 2 hours, kind of things. And suddenly using those skills, doing something really meaningful that I believe in, was like an amazing gift then, because everything that I had learned became useful in a totally different kind of way. Yeah.
One example, we were in Espoo in one school. It was Tuesday, and a group of youth came to see us, and they said that we want to go to prison. We want to go teach IT skills to people who are in prison, that they can get back to the society when they get free. So usually people react to this, okay, tomorrow prison. But when there is Veera Ikonen like person, okay, let's do it. One phone call, and on Wednesday they were in prison teaching IT skills.
Yeah.
So they're really useful, and
yeah.
you know, when you're working with the teenagers, it's good to have people like Veera.
Yeah, because we often people say, oh, let's see tomorrow. We set up this group first to think about this for 3 months, and then within 3 years we might have the money, and by then the teenagers are already, you know, adults with the same idea that nothing is possible in this world because it's this and that and but. So that's why it's great to work with them.
Okay. We also discussed that we don't want to like build a hero story. This what you've been through and going through is hard to even imagine. But how do you feel about life, about your life now, when you look back to this Kismet moment with the phoenix bird? What kind of a journey it has been?
It's it's been a good journey. I don't know. It's just to realize that to find joy is amazing, and obviously it's not like this whoa, but there's been other kind of moments again then that kind of you build a new narrative, and then you share that narrative, and it starts to sound like this kind of ready-made narrative, and by then, if not before, life again comes and stops you and kind of semi-crushes you again, so you kind of rebuild again and again and again. So, but it's possibly easier when it's happened a couple of times, and then you remember how, anyways, the only way to feel safe is to accept uncertainty, I suppose, to some degree. Yeah.
A couple of words about creativity. I've seen her in her most creative moments, and it's like fireworks, you know, and it's a joy to be next to you. But tell us about how you feel about creativity. What does it mean to you?
I suppose it's curiosity. A lot of it is curiosity, just to go with it, and then it's having fun. Well, obviously there are the shame moments, but those moments maybe that you mean are the moments where it's about excitement, and with that usually you need other people who are there to feed it, and you kind of, it goes back and forth, and then suddenly things kind of open up and they connect in a way. I don't know if it's this kind of feeling that everything makes sense and clicks, and it builds this bigger picture. And I must say, they are not always diamonds, because sometimes it's then everything is like whoa in your head, and then in reality it's not quite that great. but maybe 35% work fairly well. So there are those moments, and then it's actually fun that sometimes even by myself when I'm writing, it's like that moment and you're like, oh, like this by yourself. So the feeling is excitement at those moments. Yeah.
I'm gonna let you ask some questions in just minute, but I also wrote to my notes that you wanted to connected to these pictures is the thought that you made a decision to start to live.
Yeah.
And you also brought a
Yeah.
quote.
I brought a
related.
quote which I came across as I was writing the book, and there's an artist character in the book called Stella. And there's the main character who's lost a child and who's in mourning and this kind of protected hiding state. And then there's this artist character. And I didn't quite know why I brought her there. I just knew when I started to write this that I want there to be this antithesis to her who's like free of all kinds of shame and who's free. This Stella character. And then I didn't quite still get it why she was there, but as I was writing the book, I was reading about trauma, and I was watching this webinar on collective trauma, and there was a therapist called Esther Perel, who you might know, talking there, and she was talking about writing her book and called Mating in Captivity, and this is what she said. At one point I asked Jack, her husband, when you work with the torture survivors, how do you know when they come back? How do you know that they are reconnecting with life? What are the signs? I mean, they could just be like the Walking Dead. What does it mean? The difference between surviving and reviving, between not being dead and being alive. And we started talking about when people are once again starting to be able to be creative, because creativity by definition is an active engagement with the unknown. You have to have the sense of safety to be able to take the risk of plunging into the mystery of the creative. Playfulness, initiatives, going out into the world again. Yeah. And it's interesting because I realized that in a way I felt like before I was kind of too attached to trying to be safe. And then as it's taken away, what you end up with is then being forced to find safety in the uncertainty, and then that kind of released the creativity in a way. It's like before I had been operating like this, and then suddenly that opened, and there all this that was here already as a possibility started to become true. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So, do you have questions for Veera about anything?
Yeah, because you mentioned, well, there was the word playfulness. And I just thought, what was the latest moment of insight you've been in a moment of playfulness or creativeness? What's the previous?
Most recent one. We were just in Tallinn with the youth, and I suppose there in the edit when choosing certain bits for the video, and they start to become a whole in a kind of way that feels fun. Actually, the most creative moment of playfulness was as we had a morning show for them, and we decided to make them shout "Gutsy go," and then Petram, who also works for Gutsy Go, came along and started to do this jumping thing, and I felt so excited that we were just jumping. And it's this kind of art that together we suddenly, something naturally just grew out of the situation that had the whole 114-year-olds jumping and shouting, and in the middle of this time. It was just great.
Do you think that great ideas only thrive in positivity and without trauma, or is there great ideas somewhere in the dark places too? And if people are in dark places, is there a place for them in society?
Yeah, I think yes. Both. Yeah, at least my experience would be that I've started to write this book in a dark place. The very first pages and the very first novel that it's based on, a short story that it was based on, I was in a very dark place with the mourning and the loss. And then as I ended it, I was in a lighter place. and perhaps writing it is one of the reasons I wrote myself in a way out of the darkness. But I'm not saying that every single piece of art or books or anything should be of this positivity. And I believe actually that this book probably is quite dark. And it depends from the readers. I've had friends who've said, oh, it's so dark. And I have friends who've said, oh, it's so funny. So, and I suppose it's also from which perspective and with which experience they come to read it. So I definitely think that there has to be space for people to be broken and to be unfinished, because we all are, and to be fragile, and to feel that there is space for us to be like this in this society and be met with acceptance and grace and no requirement to be better or to be well or to be happy and light, but to just be human beings together as we are, with all our wounds and unfinished business.
I like the idea how you turn your difficult situation in life you turn into this piece of book. Do you believe it was some kind of therapy for you to write that book, or did you go to therapy, or because as an artist myself, I feel that all those difficult things you go in your life, they can come something beautiful in the end, even it's a painful experience.
Yeah.
What you went through.
Yes, I did go to therapy. I had a really good trauma therapist that I saw after all these losses. And actually, there's a sentence in the book that I must give credit to her for, and it's sielu ei viihdy valheessa. Soul does not thrive in lie, something like that. And also, when I started to write the book, I think the first versions and the very first pages would have been more like this kind of therapy writing, and then it's good that it's been so many years that there's this kind of distance as well, that I think it would be too much. It would be unbearable for others to read the very first raw version of the pain. So it started like that, and then it's gotten that kind of distance from it.
Maybe can give also a lot of hope
Yeah.
for people who have went through the same kind of experience.
I hope so, and it,
Difficult one.
yeah, and obviously, and I hope that's one of the reasons why I also wanted to write the book. Yeah, to create a connection, and for people who are in the middle of that worst kind of darkest sorrow to also feel that you're not alone, that there's connection. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very interested in the body and the messages the bodies give you, especially when in regards to Kismet or to following the path. And I'm interested in how you experienced your body in these moments when you had the feeling of something so.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because now that you say it, when I think back, like in those times when maybe kind of doing something against the grain in a way, against my soul or something before, I was so stubborn that I probably explained to myself, I'm going to do this, but it's always been then my body that's then in the end finally says stop. That if the head doesn't give up, then the body is like saying that you need to stop. So I suppose with these moments of Kismet, it feels like, well, this word, I suppose it feels like you can breathe. When you are true, and with the sentence from the therapist sentence that the soul does not thrive in lie, you will know that if you can't breathe, or you have the sensation that you can't breathe. Yeah.
Bear with me. It's going to be a kind of a long one with the base to it. But as we were mentioning that with our youth, everyone is a little bit more creative than as adults are maybe sometimes being. And I do believe myself that we still have a lot of generations amongst us who have felt the wrath of the war in Finland and have felt the generations behind it and everything. So I do think that, at least for my parents' generation, it's a lot of the thoughts that creativity is not maybe allowed, and you should always stick to the right molds on how to do things in a certain way. But now, as we have maybe a little bit more creative generations coming up, however, there is still a war going on in Europe, and it's probably not going to get too much better in a little bit of a time. So do you think that this will kind of start that cycle again, where creativity will be taken back, or do you think that our newer generations will somewhat thrive from this and bring the general creativity forward and kind of get it to thrive better in the future generations as well? Or?
That's really interesting because you're bringing that up, because as I was saying, this webinar that I was watching, it was about collective trauma. And when I had this kind of personal experience of traumatic events, and there was not just one but 3 deaths in a row, and then I was thinking, like, how does this compare to experiencing collective trauma? Like, how does it feel to experience this trauma and everyone else around you is kind of going on, and then as there's a collective trauma. Now it's been interesting with the corona and the war and everything to see the same kind of reactions and this kind of, it's almost like you can hear it as a sound, this kind of tension, or I don't know what to call it, collectively of fear and preparedness and reactionary feeling around you, and realize that there's all these prior traumas that are kind of being called up again and being activated. They may be personal, they may be collective, and all this situation is kind of that we are in this state of alertness. And as I was watching this webinar, and in this very same quote, I wrote it down as well, Esther Perellis is writing about how she grew up in this community that was mainly made of Holocaust survivors, and how she could see within that community that others were kind of thriving, and then there were those who were barely surviving, and whatever then is the reason why that happens. But she was saying that for many it was the guilt that you should not feel pleasure. Because if you feel pleasure or if you enjoy, it means that you are not prepared for danger. You've let go of your guard, and then something bad can happen. So if you experience pleasure or creativity, then you'll be punished for it because you let go of the guard and alertness. So I don't know. It's maybe, I'm hoping that maybe because we talk about these things a lot, and there's more awareness of trauma and even collective trauma and all these kind of things, that we can discuss these and deal with them. And the youth today are more aware of that as well. And as we become more aware of our own ways of reacting and recognizing when this is truly me, or am I just, this is something being called up in me that's a reaction because of a trauma. Maybe maybe we can have an impact on that together. Yeah, I hope.
Yeah, I was wondering, you said very well about, the quotation was very interesting, and actively engaging creativity. And what is your take on that? Because I think that's maybe one of the most, the biggest problem, or people are fighting with it when it comes to creativity. When they have ideas, and they maybe even share friends. They have friends with a similar kind of mindset. But then the example of that case when you were in Espoo and you just pick up the phone and make this happen. But many people, I think many people have that, there's a barrier to pick up the phone or things like that.
Yeah.
What is your, have you grown into it, or?
I don't know. It's a good question because I could quote a 14-year-old from the city of Kotka. After the third time, it gets easier. And that's based on there are many youth, for example, who've never made a phone call to a strange person. And the first time, maybe when you are there with them, it's like, I may make the phone call. And then we, after that, see how they replied, or even if they say no to me, then they're like, oh, but they said no. I was, yeah, they said no. And then we'll make the second phone call. And like, well, if I explain the beginning, will you explain the second bit? And then the third time, okay, you can make the phone call. And then they make the phone call, and then they tell their friends, yeah, it gets easier after the third time. So I suppose it's like, it's first of all to have the faith in a way that to me, faith means like, that despite of everything that tells us things are this way, we decide to believe otherwise. Despite everything so far tells us the world is a bad place, we decide to believe otherwise. And that's one step, and then we start to get experiences that confirm that, and then that enhances our capacity to go even though we see a brick wall and just decide, no, we'll go because we've done this before, and we know that beyond that brick wall is, or through it, or somehow around it. But yeah, so the example, I think, makes a whole lot of difference. Yeah.
And letting go of the shape.
And obviously it's probably we are protecting ourselves. Like, what if we fail? Then what? And then, well, then what?
Let's give a big warm applause to Veera. Thank you for coming, and thank you.